This is Talk Business and Politics with Roby Brock.
I'm Roby Brock. It's Monday, October 31st. Welcome to the Halloween edition of Talk Business and Politics Daily. We hope all of you daddies and mummies too are having a good day. Let's check out today's top stories. The sponsor of Issue 7, the Arkansas Medical Cannabis Act, which the Supreme Court removed from the ballot last week, blamed the sponsor of Issue 6, the Arkansas Medical Marijuana Amendment, for her initiative's demise. In an interview, Issue 7 sponsor Melissa Fultz said she voted against the amendment. Fultz said she hopes to file a lawsuit to have a special election regarding her initiative. She said she would work to draft a new initiative if the Supreme Court decision is not reversed. Her group, Arkansans for Compassionate Care, asked the Supreme Court for a rehearing of its decision today. The leader of the Arkansas State Senate, Jonathan Dismang, says the legislature may self-impose a limit of 2 referred constitutional amendments next session, and one could clean up the process for voter-initiated proposals. The legislature is allowed to refer 3 amendment proposals, but Dismang may recommend a limit of 2 in order to address the recent confusion that led to the Medical Cannabis Act being knocked off the ballot. Read more at talkbusiness.net. Transfers to athletics of unrestricted education and general funds have increased an average of 49% statewide in the last 5 years and 19% over the last 2 years. Among the state's 10 four-year universities and 3 two-year colleges with athletic programs, $13 million was transferred to athletics in 2016. Most of it, more than $12 million, was by the four-year schools. Overall funding for higher education has been flat for 6 years, Governor Asa Hutchinson said Monday, and has not been increased across the board for 20 years. Hutchinson pledged on Monday to add $10 million to higher education's budget if a new funding formula that emphasizes graduation rates, not enrollment, is adopted. And those are your top stories of the day. You can check out a full read on those articles and much more at our website at talkbusiness.net. After the break, we talk politics with John Brummett of the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette, then Governor Asa Hutchinson. Where do we stand with the private option in Arkansas Works? We'll also go inside the numbers for a closer look at Halloween expectations for retailers. Are they lined up for a trick or a treat? We're back after this.
First Security is here. Only here. So that means we're here, here, and here. Even here. And definitely here. Because here is where we want to be for you. First Security Bank, only in Arkansas.
Arkansas's most abundant natural resource provides the core asset for Deltic Timber Corporation. In addition to the sustainable yield stewardship of its well-stocked timberlands, Deltic adds value by integrating its efficient wood products manufacturing facilities, as well as through planned development of commercial and residential real estate. Deltic Timber Corporation, creating value for a growing Arkansas.
If it's Monday, it is John Brummett. He is a political writer for the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette, Talk Business and Politics contributor too. Good to see you, my friend.
Every Monday. Unless
not. Last week, and then we didn't, but we're back.
We did Tuesday.
Well,
yeah.
we did the big Facebook Live. That was actually.
I actually enjoyed that.
There was a bunch. We had a whole hour.
Yeah, it was good.
That was good.
I'm sorry if they missed it, because it was scintillating.
It's still out there.
Right.
It's still relevant, quite frankly.
Right.
No tweeting during the Razorback bye week this week. I was very disappointed in you.
I was at a little social function, and I was holding forth verbally. Had no time to tweet. Plus, my best tweets are football analytical, don't you think, related to the Razorbacks?
It's true. Well, there were some things you could have tweeted, but I'll give you a pass on this one. So let's talk about little things roiling presidential politics.
All right.
Here. Mm-hmm. James Comey, the FBI director, drops this bombshell on Friday that he has decided that he is going to look at some new emails in this investigation. Over the weekend, we find out much more through apparently a very porous FBI
reporting.
Exactly. Did Comey do the right thing, or did he overstep his reach?
I believe he did the wrong thing, but I understand why he did it. I think I think he was confronted with his agents telling him that in this Weiner investigation, we've got these new emails. They're there. We don't know anything more than that. And I think under prevailing Justice Department policy and procedure, if you don't know enough to say what you're doing, you shouldn't say something about alleged criminality. And you also ought to go take extra precaution not to be putting a thumb on the scales of an election, as they say. And I believe he was encouraged not to do it. I know nobody's going to believe, not for the political reasons that partisan reasons, but as a matter of procedure, he did the wrong thing. However, I think he was confronted with a matter of personal honor. He had told the congressional committee, if I get more information, I'll tell you. And he just decided to err on the side of covering himself with people to whom he said he would give forthcoming information. His statement turned out to be so cryptic,
yes,
and yet seismic. I mean, it was just like, that's what I stole that from my column tomorrow, cryptically seismic. It's just sort of a puzzle what he's saying, but it means so much politically. I said there was no substance to what he said except for the dynamite stick he put into his message. And that's where we find ourselves. I find I'm trying to cut a fine line here. He shouldn't have done it, but I understand why he did.
Yeah.
Paul Krugman, who I don't always agree with, said the Republicans had been working the refs on this thing by talking about a rigged election and how everybody was defending Hillary. And I think he was sensitive to that. I think he was a ref who kind of got worked. You know,
yeah.
It's the basketball metaphor.
It is a good one.
Yeah.
It works for the football too.
I guess
keep
so.
that in mind
you
with
normally,
your tweeting.
I know, but you normally see it on courtside in basketball where they work the refs more closely. You can see it more clearly.
So here's a question. Should we have been able to learn as much as we did learn? He gave a cryptic message. It told us next to nothing, quite frankly. Within the next 48, 72 hours, we learned it's Anthony Weiner's computer. We learned there's 650,000 emails. We learned some of them may be duplicates. Many of them may be duplicates. We learned so much through leaks.
Right.
In something that was supposed to be airtight and concealed. We don't see the FBI slide things out like that. Do we?
Roby, to begin with, Comey sent a memo to the chairman and ranking members of committees, right? He didn't make a news release. That we know it at all. That we know he sent a memo or he made this report was itself leaked by Republicans in Congress. Of course, they'd been guilty of political malpractice if they hadn't leaked it, but it was a leak to begin with. Secondly, this is big-time political stuff. We were 10, 11 days from one of the most volatile elections in our history, and it plainly had some effect on that election. And we now know that people in the Justice Department were trying to get Comey not to release the information, and I think people.
There were some in the FBI that were trying to get him to release the information.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think it's appropriate once it's out there for. We all depend on leakers, don't we? In journalism, we do. We need them, and they usually, sometimes they have bad motives, but sometimes they have good motives. In this case, I think it's people trying to lend some context to a totally mysterious development in a presidential race 10 days before. The more leaks, the better if they're good leaks and tell us more about what this strange incident is. So it doesn't bother me. I think people were doing the right thing to leak.
So the 270 electoral vote question,
yes.
How does it impact the race?
Here's what I say, and this will be in tomorrow's column. As I read the map, if Hillary indeed carries North Carolina, as I think she will, and those western states, Nevada, Colorado, New Mexico, and Pennsylvania, and Virginia, she's ahead in all of those. She's got enough cushion in all of those that she might be able to withstand a 2-point drop here at the end from this information. I've got her at 278. So she can even lose Florida and Ohio and still win.
Which was in the calculation before this happened.
And it remains before. My premise is that she will, the Steve Schmidt formulation, whichever of these candidates, both these candidates are hated, so the one that's getting talked about most is the one that's being hurt. So she's being hurt right now. She will sustain some loss, but if you look at at the prevailing averaging of polls in most of those states I just mentioned, she can spare a 1 or 2 point loss. The state I want to watch, and also you didn't ask this, but the early voting, remember this, this
Right.
is so massive, particularly in some of these key states, that she may have worked up such a big lead early in some of these states that even a change in the dynamic on election day won't cover. Do you know
I had that as one of my questions.
Well, I'm
actually.
sorry,
It's
I got
right there,
ahead.
but it's all right. You're good. You were about to tell me there was a state that you wanted to watch.
North Carolina, well, I'm going to tell you two states. North Carolina, do you know what, and this thing that they do, which gives us kind of a running score, which is fun, the pollsters go to a state, they draw from the list of people who have voted early, and then they draw their sample from them, and then they do a sample from people who have yet to vote. And so you can sort of see who's ahead in what state from the early voting. Was it Reuters or no, NBC Marist, one of the polls over the weekend. Hillary in North Carolina, 61-33 leading, with 29% of the likely turnout having been cast already.
That's a lot of money in the bank.
That is a big head start. Now they've got her winning 47-41 in the four-way race. So what that says is people voting from now on are going to be overwhelmingly for him, but she may have such a big lead in some of these swing states with early voting. Now the other state, Pennsylvania, no early voting. Pennsylvania is vital to her winning without Ohio and Florida. She's been ahead. If she gets into a free fall at the end and loses several points, then Pennsylvania's the state to watch because there is no early voting head start. They have no early voting. So that could be, that's 20 electoral votes. May I tell you my nightmare before we quit?
Sure.
The nightmare for the country?
Yes.
Just to throw this out there,
it is Halloween. You may do this.
Just for sinister's sake.
Okay.
And also because it's a point about our dysfunction. What if she does fall more than one or two? What if she falls enough that Pennsylvania gets real close? What if the election comes down to Pennsylvania? What if it is so razor thin and she's ahead, but what if the Republicans claim, as they always do, that there are all sorts of irregularities in the inner city vote in Philadelphia? And what if they file suit to challenge the outcome in a decisive state? And what if it goes to the Supreme Court? And what if the Supreme Court is deadlocked 4-4 and cannot decide who the President of the United States is?
You have thought this. You need to write a novel on this.
That's not a novel. That's just a paragraph that could actually come true, and it would almost serve us right. And it's an irony, too. The Republicans would have held up a Supreme Court nomination pending the outcome of an election that cannot be decided because they held up the Supreme Court. You follow what I'm saying?
I follow what you're saying.
I don't think it will happen, but wouldn't it be something if it did? Yes.
I love the drama.
All right.
You couldn't even write that stuff in
No, you
Hollywood
couldn't-
because
you
nobody would buy it.
You couldn't make it up. No,
That's
you
right.
couldn't. You couldn't.
John Brummett, is always a pleasure. Thank you so much,
Thank
my
you.
friend.
All right.
All right. Catch him in the Daily Arkansas Democrat Gazette and online at arkansasonline.com. Don't forget to catch that column tomorrow. After the break, we're going to go inside the numbers for a look at how Halloween treats retailers in Arkansas. And later, a little more of my conversation with Governor Asa Hutchinson.
Each day, the promise of our nation begins again. Arkansas and America moving forward. I help make that promise a reality. It's not for everyone, but people everywhere depend on us.
Oh, I love you too.
Trucking delivers, or everything stops. And that's what drives me.
I did.
Circuits turn on the lights by making a connection, by closing the loop. At Entergy, we believe our economy is circular too. What you put in comes back. So we invest billions in new infrastructure, which helps attract new industry, which helps create new jobs. We partner with local communities to electrify the economy, and together we power life. Entergy.
Time to go inside the numbers for a look at retailers and Halloween. Are consumers spooked by what's happening in the economy? Let's find out. $8.4 billion, that's how much money U.S. consumers are expected to spend on Halloween this year, according to the National Retail Federation. And that's about a 20% boost from a year ago when spending dipped. How much does that translate to on average? $82.93. That's the average spend per consumer that's expected. The average American will spend that much on candy, costumes, and other decorations. And then this little bit of bad news here, negative 28%. Thus, costumes and decorations are growing more popular than candy. The retail survey noted that 28% of consumers plan to spend less on candy this year, but they will more than make that up with the difference with those outfits and that decor. A quick word from our sponsors, and Governor Asa Hutchinson joins us. Please stick around.
As Arkansas's population grows, so do our energy demands. But with the right mix of resources, reliable, affordable power will always be a reality. These resources are all around us in our rivers, blowing through our trees, even right below our feet. The answer isn't focusing on one resource, it's embracing them all. The electric cooperatives of Arkansas know that a balanced approach to power builds our communities and powers our dreams. Visit themixmatters.com and see why there's power in knowledge.
At Deltic Timber Corporation, we believe in the responsible creation of communities, in the development of neighborhoods that bring convenience and comfort to life, while respecting the beauty and delicacy of nature. Like the harmonious balance of environment and expansion found in the thriving communities of Chenal Valley and Chenal Downs in Little Rock, and Red Oak Ridge in Hot Springs. Because the best communities in the natural state are the ones that help keep it that way.
On yesterday's Talk Business and Politics Weekly show, I had a long sit down with our Governor Asa Hutchinson to discuss his trip to China, War Memorial Stadium plans, and some other items, but we turned our attention to new complications surrounding the Affordable Care Act and Arkansas Works. Senator Jim Hendren said when he saw those numbers about the threshold exceeding $300,000 that the Affordable Care Act's trajectory is, quote, unsustainable, is what he said. The state has applied for some federal waivers for some relief. Can you provide an update as to where we are on those federal waivers? What's the timeline?
Well, let's separate those questions there. First of all, Senator Jim Hendren talked about the unsustainability and the future of the Affordable Care Act on its current trajectory. I take that as looking at the National Affordable Care Act and where it's headed from a national perspective, and I think we all have deep concerns about it, and particularly with the insurers pulling out of the markets in other states. But if you look at it separately from an Arkansas standpoint, we share the concerns as to the future of health care and what the Affordable Care Act means. That's why we wanted to implement these reforms under Arkansas Works. And then secondly, we want to have more reforms. We need, with the new administration, hopefully have more flexibility to manage this better so we get it off the current trajectory. In terms of the waivers, those have been applied for. We're getting a favorable response from CMS, but they haven't been granted yet. We hope to get those soon.
Will they be granted before you have to present a budget to the legislature?
It'll probably be closed. We have to get it fairly soon because we have to implement this between now and January 1. We're counting on that being a part of the budget for next year. So we're assuming that those waivers will be granted, and that's the basis of which we're preparing our budget.
That's Governor Asa Hutchinson. You can catch the full interview on talkbusiness.net. We have that and many other stories on the latest in business and politics in Arkansas for you to enjoy. I'm Roby Brock. That's all for today. Thank you so much for watching. Have a fun and safe rest of your Halloween. We'll see you tomorrow.